Alright, so now I want to go through a couple of test hands. I could show like combos, I guess, but I feel like those are for more like optimal hands, or like it doesn't give you a good idea of like what you might draw into and how you can kind of control a board, depending on kind of how your turn one goes. So I think it's better if we do some like test hands. Alright, so we're gonna start off with our first hand. Okay, this is a pretty solid hand. I like this a lot. Having double Buffalo isn't the best. So normally you'd want to get Gazelle in hand, especially with like Salamangreat Circle. But the thing is that if we get Gazelle in hand now, we don't really have a nice follow-up unless we want to double summon Baylings, which is not really the most helpful. So I think what I would do is probably like start off with Circle and then search for maybe something like Jack Jaguar, because then Jack Jaguar we can end up reusing later with Flame Buffalo. And so, assuming that this doesn't get ashed, basically, but even if it did, you do have another Flame Buffalo anyway, so you can still discard to, to draw the two cards. And so then now we would go Flame Buffalo, we would go Link off into Baylings, Chain Link 1, Chain Link 2. So, the reason why we do this too is to get the Sanctuary out of the deck before we draw the two cards, because there's a chance that you could draw the Sanctuary off Buffalo, which then makes your Baylings pretty much like useless. And you really don't want to draw into Sanctuary when you could have just easily grabbed it off of Baylings. And if Baylings gets ashed, it's not that big a deal. Like I said before, it does become kind of annoying because not having the Sanctuary is a bit of an issue, but it's not that big a deal. Okay, wow. I forgot to discard for Buffalo. Okay, so let's see. So we could probably activate the Sanctuary. I'm just gonna put it over here. We could do something like summon Baylings over itself. Then we could activate Exceed. So then we go into another Exceed. Then we Desires. 10. Okay, did we hit anything important? We hit the one Falco, which kind of sucks, but other than that, not that big a deal. Like I said, with this deck, you don't really hit a lot that really like bothers you. Wow, okay. So I mean, honestly, if you like really wanted to, you could probably just end on like Bagooska here, and you'd be pretty much fine for the next turn because you have double Imperm, Ash, and a Droplet. I mean, I don't really know what else they could really do. So we could do something. Let's do this. We could go into the third Baylings, and then with these two, go into Wolf, and then we're gonna activate Jack Jaguar, bounce back one of these Baylings, summon in the zone that Wolf points to, and then we're gonna activate Wolf Effect. Allows us to grab back like the Flame Buffalo or something. If you really want to like preserve another Baylings, you could do that, but I don't feel like that's super important. I guess you probably could, just because we already have another Buffalo in hand anyway. But you could do that, and then we could use, yeah. And then we could basically just go into Bagooska from here. So, and then now you just have all these cards, so you just set double Imperms, set Droplet. So then whatever they try to do, you know, they search for something, okay, that's fine. I Ash it. Any monster that they like summon is pretty much negated with Bagooska aside from like Link monsters, so you don't have to worry too much about monster effects, but in case they do summon like a Link monster that might scare you, you have two Imperms for that. You can also basically kill two of their zones. And so I don't see you really having to use Droplet. If you did, you could always Droplet you could always, if they start building a board that gets kind of scary, you could always like Imperm something and then chain Droplet, and then Droplet can send an Imperm, send a Buffalo or something, negate two monster effects and drop their attacks. Or you can even do this during the damage step if they have something that can actually attack over your Wolf. And then you can even you even have like a Baylings that you could use for protection. So you have like a lot of options here, and then like your next draw would be Signet Mining, so that's pretty good too. You'd have to detach for Bagooska, but basically you're pretty much set up to just totally destroy your opponent next turn. You could find a really easy way to go into Access Code Talker from here. Like you could You even activate Jack Jaguar again, or no, you would like second summon. Okay, so I guess we'll just go into it. So let's just say you burn that. Let's just say you burn Droplet too. So then now you second summon Wolf, and my camera doesn't have a good way to capture all the zones, but ideally Bagooska would be in the zone all the way to the left, so it's kind of like out of the way. But anyway, so you second summon Wolf, you use Wolf's effect to grab back your circle, activate circle, search for pretty much any Salamangreat. You could probably grab something like Foxy or Spinny would be good. And then you could like Signet Mining, discard Spinny, search for Gazelle, and then Gazelle effect, you know, special summon it, send a monster. You could activate Jack Jaguar. You can go into Splash Mage, or you can go into Update Jammer. Use, you know, Update Jammer and like any other. You could like summon Buffalo and then goes Update Jammer and like Flame Buffalo to go into Transcode Talker, and then basically go into Access Code Talker, and you basically just won the duel. You have an Imperm that you have set from last turn and stuff like that too, so there's not a lot that they can really do against this. Okay, I feel like that hand was for the most part like pretty optimal for the most part. So let's see what happens here. Okay, this is a pretty solid hand too. Kind of tough considering that it depends on how you want to play this, because you could play around Ash, but it would cost you a couple more resources. And what I mean by that is, like, for example, like the obvious play here would be like something like Signet Mining, discarding Jack Jaguar to search for Gazelle. But the problem with that is if you get ashed, then you're dead, because you can't do anything. You can set Dynamiscus and then hope that they summon 5 for Nibiru or something, but that's about it. So if we wanted to like play around that, what we could do would be like Signet Mining, probably discard either Nibiru or the Dynamiscus. I'm leaning toward Nibiru because, like I said, it's not that strong in this format anyway. So dump Nibiru, search for, even if that got ashed, you would still not be in a terrible position because you could still go Jack Jaguar into Phalanx and then activate Exceed, which would chain block Phalanx, which allow you to second summon Phalanx again. Yeah, second summon Phalanx, take another zone, summon with Jack Jaguar. You can still go into Wolf and end on a Bagooska, but let's just say you didn't get Ash for the sake of simplicity. And then Signet Mining goes to the grave. And so now you summon Jack Jaguar, and then you link off into Phalanx. Phalanx effect allows you to search, and then since a Link monster, or sorry, since Salamangreat monster was sent to the graveyard, Gazelle effect. Probably want to send. You could send like one of the Salamangreat spell or trap cards because you can be able to get it back with Wolf in a minute. And then so you can link off into Wolf, and then since you link summoned, you can go Parallel Exceed. Parallel Exceed effect, Wolf effect. You can actually chain block the Parallel Exceed. So Wolf effect will grab Gazelle back. Whoops. Grab Gazelle back. Parallel Exceed will summon itself. I kind of did that a little bit out of order. You probably wanted to use the Exceed to chain block the Phalanx, but that's fine. And then Parallel Exceed, you can go to summon Bagooska. You just use the Sanctuary, and then you can second summon Wolf. You probably could play around Nibiru if you wanted to, but now it's second summoning the Wolf, but that's fine. And then you can activate the Wolf's effect to grab back the Roar. Then you activate Jack Jaguar, recycle the Wolf, summon Jack Jaguar. It's in defense mode. And then you pretty much just end with this. So you have a Phalanx in grave for protection. You have a Salamangreat Roar, and then a Dynamiscus as well to disrupt your opponent. You probably don't want to use the Dynamiscus if you can help it, because it would make you dump your Gazelle, which you really don't want to do. But you can always get it back and stuff, but then you can't really use the effect on the same turn. But basically, yeah, you'd have like the Roar, you'd have the Dynamiscus, and then you have Bagooska, which is just a really good floodgate as well. So you're pretty well protected and set up. It would take a lot to really kind of get through and really kind of mess you up. I mean, like your next draw would be something like Imperial Order, which wouldn't really help you in that situation. But it's you have a lot of protection and just a really good control over pretty much what's going to happen next turn. So if you choke the deck that you're dueling against with a couple of good spots with like Roar, then you'd be, and then if you needed to Dynamiscus, then you'd be in a really good spot for the next turn. Alright guys, that's pretty much going to do it for Salads. It's a deck that I had a lot of fun playing, and it taught me a lot about when to disrupt opponents and how to look for certain disruptions that will optimize your advantage. And I think that it's a really solid deck for a really good price. I mean, like I said, most of the core you can probably build for like 50 bucks. And then after that, you can grab a couple of the other cards that you need. Like Nibiru will be a bit more expensive, but that's going down too because that got reprinted. Like most of these cards that were expensive in this deck have been reprinted to hell. So they've been going down a lot in price. I mean, imperms are kind of expensive, but they're a lot cheaper than they used to be. Like this used to be 40 bucks. Now it's like 20. So I mean, you could pick up a set of imperms for like 60 bucks now. Before that would get you like one, and then like 1.5 basically. So that's pretty good. Droplet is of course expensive, but this is just a tech card I have in here right now. It's probably more of a side deck card to be honest, but I just like running it because it's fun. It's a fun little interaction. Nothing else in this deck is like that expensive. The only expensive card in the extra deck would be Access Code Talker. I mean, like I said, this card's like 70 bucks, but like I said, you could sub it out. But I mean, the entirety of the deck, like I said, you could probably build the entirety of the deck for without Access Code Talker and without the imperms, and then maybe like without the ashes, but even that's going down a bit too. But you could probably build the entirety of the deck for, I don't know, probably like, I want to say, if you found some good deals, you could probably build it for about, also like these cards that come in commons and stuff too, so like, yeah, like it's pretty easy to build. Even this comes in like a rare, like a gold rare, and then the new set. So you can probably build the majority of the deck for probably 60 bucks, maybe 70 at the most. Spend 70 bucks on Access Code Talker. Also, it's just a good card to have in general. So I mean, you're not really like losing anything by getting this. So the entirety of the deck is probably like 150, and then you have like a solid deck to play with. There's other decks you could spend about that amount with, and just have a pretty good deck as well. Dinosaurs being one of them, but I think that this is a really solid deck. And like I said, if you didn't want to grab Access Code, you're really looking at like 50 to 70 bucks for the deck, which is super cheap. So yeah, hope you guys like that. Have a good one.